Jealousy and envy have a very weird way of functioning that's sometimes not clearly apparent. You may have begun something or were on your path to do something in March of 2025 when your actions triggered a response from other people who got in the way of what you wanted to do. What's worse is that this manipulation may have gone unaddressed until now. You may have missed opportunities. You may have been second-guessing yourself. All sorts of toxic things as consequence for other people's actions. The Sun square Saturn is a catalyst for healing that energy. So be patient, and between now and December, you're likely to get back on the right path. So Sun and Saturn are going to form a square on July 6th. Let's cover what a planetary cycle is if you haven't been watching. A planetary cycle is a relationship between two or more planets. It consists of a conjunction, a sextile, a square, a trine, an opposition, another trine, a closing square, a closing sextile, and then finally finishes in a conjunction. I've been using this to explain to everyone what a planetary cycle is, because some of you might be familiar with these aspects. I want to note that a planetary cycle does not really begin in any phase. It can begin in any one of these phases, but it's convention that it's associated with the new moon, the conjunction. The opposition is associated with the full moon. So by convention, we usually consider it that way. So an opposition can be the beginning of a cycle, specifically if you were born on an opposition. That's the beginning of your life cycle, right? But let's go by the standard way so we don't confuse people. Sun and Saturn are in a planetary cycle together, like all other planets. This cycle began on March 25th. So this was the start at 4 degrees of Aries, okay? Right now we are at this position, this square. It's called an opening square. Opening just means it's the first square. July 6th, 2026. And we have the square at 14 degrees Cancer square Aries, okay? So Saturn's in Aries and the Sun is in Cancer. The cycle is going to finish on April 7th, 2027. This is going to finish at, I wrote 27 degrees Aries, but I think that's incorrect. It's probably 17 degrees Aries. So basically the Sun orbits around the zodiac. The Sun doesn't orbit because we go around the Sun, but for the purpose of astrology, which is geocentric from the perspective of the Earth, the Sun goes around the zodiac and comes back to Aries and meets it at 17 degrees. So some of the main themes of this relationship, so Sun Saturn in Aries, some of the main qualities of this planetary cycle are a big focus on boundaries. That just means the relationship that you have with other people and yourself. This can be taming yourself, but also pushing yourself to do more, and especially in the face of adversity. Chiron is in between Aries and Taurus right now. It's been affecting our self-esteem for the last 8 years. And so this is a very powerful cycle for us to regain a sense of strength and identity. So we'll see about that in just a minute. We have also adjustment for higher levels. This means that when we adjust ourselves under this transit, we can achieve better quality of life, success, relationships. This is a time to revisit behaviors, but also don't forget to forgive yourself. So this means if you feel guilty about doing something, under this transit, you should really practice self-forgiveness. The things that you didn't get to complete, the things that you didn't do well, you need to move past any feelings of guilt or entrapment so that you can move forward. So forgive yourself. And under this whole planetary cycle that lasts a year is a great time Great time for making way for a project or business. So this is where we started in March, okay? And now we're here. So in July, we have the square, which is the first tense energy in the chart. The sun is in Cancer and Saturn is still in Aries. Under the Sun Saturn square, we experience tension or conflict of interest between our relationships represented by Sun in Cancer and that whole process of self-actualization of Saturn in Aries. You might be tempted to lose focus, especially through relationships. So you may be drawn towards different types of relationships that will take you take your focus off of the things that you should be focusing on. You may be bogged down with family issues. So this is like family drawing you into various different conflicts, but also opportunities. Hey, let's go for a picnic. Let's have a reunion, whatever. So personal relationships are drawing your focus away from the whole planetary cycle, which is in Aries. It's a refinement of your own goals, your own selfhood, your objectives. Guilt and shame may creep up on you at this time, and you may second guess your choices before. So if you've made choices since March, when the planetary cycle started, you may be experiencing guilt and shame and saying, maybe I shouldn't have said that, I shouldn't have done that. I'll tell you right now that you were right, and there's astrological reasons for why you may be doubting yourself. So hold tight. The answer is coming. Under this transit, you may be noticing that the world around you is not reflecting your truth. There's still some refinement that we have to experience before that closer alignment happens. So if you've taken a stance on an issue with regard to someone, you may feel that the world is naysaying you. Your friends, your family, your partner may be saying, wait, you should give them a chance, or maybe you should choose a different path, or maybe, but you have your conviction, you have your belief. If you have that strong belief and you've made that decision about someone else or about yourself, and if the world feels like it's gaslighting you to go against your better judgment, hold tight. There's a change coming later this year, that's likely going to prove your opinion correct. So let's do a little channel session to see what this is about. Someone said that you shouldn't use cards when you channel. It's just for brevity and for succinctness. Rather than sitting and waiting for messages, these are very good sources of conduit for information. So I just find it efficient. If you guys want me to channel without cards, then please let me know. I'll be happy to do it. So the first card that we have is free will. Then we have the path. That's the moon card, the energy of Pisces. Then we have harmony, number 14. That's Sagittarius. Sorry if it looks funny on camera. I'm still getting used to it. Then we have glory, victory. Some of these cards keep coming up again. And then we have higher level forces, which is one of my favorite cards. And then we have finding. Okay, so let's do this. So you took a stance on something, or you took a bold move in the past. This made people somewhat uncomfortable and they pushed back. You were possibly surprised by the reaction because it came from a source that you were not focused on. So you were making decisions in one direction, and then a reaction came from a completely different group or from a completely different situation. I get that you were caught off guard. There may have been a level of a misunderstanding. This is a part of a larger path that you're taking, or that you've already taken. I actually feel you're already on it. So something stopped. So you were going along like this, and then something from an unexpected direction came in the way of your path. But essentially, you're just going to continue going, okay? So it's kind of something that made you stop, possibly pause, and I think you thought it was strange. Oh, and then there was second-hand opinions. That means a third party somehow became proximate to the situation, became aware of it, and then they shared their opinion. It was kind of out of turn. This situation doesn't feel very deep, but more the same theme of a distraction. And with careful choices, you can move forward. Listen, the only thing stopping your success is doubt. I don't know if you know my readings well, but I'm not very quick to promise things, but I strongly feel that this is basically 100% approved. There's your check mark. I picked up on something else. You're going to find something else while you pursue one direction. So there's something else for you to get out of life by going in this direction. So you'll get two things. So keep going on that path, and then you'll have a couple different options down the road. So we'll go back to Sun and Saturn, but on July 6th is another very important event for the Sun that's influencing this energy. The Sun will be at 14 degrees of Cancer, which is the location of the fixed star Sirius. Sirius is a very important star. It's one of the main stars that astrologers and astronomers have focused on in history. It's located about 8.6 light years away from the Earth. Every single year, the Sun joins Sirius. And in ancient Egypt, there was a festival associated with the heliacal rising of Sirius, which happens in August. But this becomes a solar reset for the star energy. And today I want to focus on one aspect of the star's energy or frequency, and that is jealousy or envy. So Sirius is associated with dogs all over the world. It's really strange how all these separate cultures all call it the dog star, the wolf star, those kinds of things. So in all of these places and very different groups of people that were separated through time, all named Sirius a dog or a wolf. In China, it was the celestial wolf that guarded the imperial palace. In India, it was the Svana dog in ancient texts. In Cherokee Nation, Sirius was paired with another fixed star called Antares. In Mexico, it was called the dog that follows the mountain sheep. In Inuit myth, it was called the moon dog. And in Greek myth, it was the dog of Orion. But there's one particular myth I want to show you guys. And it comes from the Skitty band of the Pawnee Nation. They're a indigenous group of the Great Plains, specifically Nebraska and Kansas. And they associate Sirius with the wolf star. And that's a very interesting myth. In the wolf star myth, the wolf star becomes enraged and jealous, and he sends its son to seek revenge for the offense that it feels. The son approaches the humans and tricks them, but then the humans find out that they had been tricked and they kill the son, the wolf. And then a great suffering happens, as this is the first death that happens on Earth. So through seeking revenge and jealous actions, they brought about the presence of death in the world. There's another myth in Egyptian mythology that's associated with Sirius as well. Isis wanted to take Ra's power, okay? So she got a snake to bite Ra and send him into great pain. In pain, Ra asked Isis to take away his pain, and she said she would do that only if she could have Ra's power. And this is a part of a larger story connected with the star, or an earlier story, a Sumerian myth, with Isis's predecessor called Inanna, who approached Enki, a major god, to take his Ka, which is his life force. So she actually got Enki drunk in order to manipulate him to take his Ka. Very similar kind of story arc to the later Egyptian myth, but both myths, or all three myths, depict scenarios where there's revenge, jealousy, manipulation, and under the square with Saturn, the sun, when it reaches Sirius, I believe that it brings light to situations involving these frequencies. One of the things to note about especially the Egyptian and Sumerian myth, that none of these gods fundamentally change their position. Enki remains Enki, Ra remains Ra, Inanna remains Inanna, and Isis remains Isis. Over the course of these ancient civilizations that lasted thousands of years, the symbolism of these gods did change, but it wasn't under the influence of these myths. So within the myth, all of these gods remain as they were, which to me points to the futility of pushing for these types of changes. So the sun at Sirius brings light to our life and creates a planetary cycle with the star. This planetary cycle is fixed because the star doesn't move, but essentially it resets the energies of envy, revenge, manipulation, and brings light to situations involving those things. So I want to show you a very interesting synchronicity that's aligning with the square and the planetary cycle. Sun and Saturn join together at 4 degrees Aries to begin the cycle on March 25th, 2026. 4 degrees of Aries is where Neptune turns retrograde on July 7th. So this is the day after the square is exact. Neptune retrograde will end at 1 degrees of Aries on December 10th. Oh, sorry, that's December 12th. 1 degree of Aries is within minutes of where Saturn and Neptune had their planetary cycle begin on February 20th of this year. So this square, Sun and Saturn, they are at 14 degrees of Cancer. That's the Sun's position. And Saturn is at 14 degrees of Aries. Okay? 14 degrees of Aries is where Saturn will begin its retrograde on July 26th. Okay? I'm trying to go very slow so you see the connection. Saturn retrograde ends at 8 degrees of Aries on December 10th. 9 degrees of Aries, so within 1 degree of that position, is where we had a solar sun, right? Eclipse last year in March 2025. So we have this kind of integrated connection between Saturn and Neptune retrograde cycles, the solar eclipse in March, and the beginning of the Sun Saturn planetary cycle. This means that all of these events are synchronistic together. And if you're wondering if this is something to do with the math, maybe, but it's different cycles, different things. So it's a synchronicity. So let me show you what this is about. So this whole sequence has a lot to do with the revision of masculine energy. And this means how the masculine energy has chosen to assert itself in the world. This is from my notes on the March 2025 eclipse. There were big shifts, changing the playing field. Groups of people asserted themselves to change the way certain things operate in the world, the way certain things function. So for the Neptune retrograde, this has a lot to do with social things. It tells me that right now, certain aspects of our social lives are out of balance, particularly with regard to decisions. And this is why you may be experiencing a misalignment between the decisions you've made and the reception that you've had. You must wait until December 12th, up to December 12th, for a revision. So as Neptune retrogrades between 4th and 1st degree to the beginning of the Neptune-Saturn planetary cycle, there's going to be balance restored in the world with regard to how groups assert themselves, the decisions they've made, things like that. Remember, the world is slower than we are. This means that the world takes a longer time to make changes in comparison to us. This includes the change in values, which are collective values. They're shifting and changing, and they're going to change between now and December 12th when Neptune is retrograde and move into alignment with a more favorable position to the decisions you've made. Saturn, on the other hand, ends at 8 degrees, which is 1 degree off of the 9-degree eclipse we had last year in March. Okay? Something may have come up, and this is from our reading. This is a members only reading from March of last year. Something may have come up that was unfair or against your favor. against your favor. So something didn't go your direction around the time of March 2025. You felt like you were maybe possibly getting pushback on something that shouldn't have received pushback, or a decision was made not in your favor. As Saturn retrogrades to that eclipse degree, expect that thing that was wrong. This is something that was clearly wrong. So you were shocked. You may have been shocked that it was that way. It's going to get a revision, and it's likely going to be in your favor. From my notes in that eclipse, so going back to those 2 videos we did, they're available for members, especially for the energy of Cancer, where the sun is under this square. There was this energy of, despite your personal success, you may have experienced hostility from people around you, making remarks under their breath or pushing back. This may be most likely extended family and people around you, and you were taken aback by their resistance to your progress. And you don't have to be a Cancer for it to have an effect. We're talking about the energy that's being revised right now. Another thing I took from those videos about the theme of jealousy and envy, that you may have had a very hard time to find people who would support you or be happy for you. That it was very hard to find people who were not jealous. So again, with Saturn retrograde, what I think is happening, and is being triggered by the Sun Saturn square, is that all of these negative emotions that were directed at you are going to be revised. And whatever kind of loss you experienced will be revisited, and hopefully balance will be attained, and you'll get some kind of balancing out of the situation in your favor. So you'll be satisfied. And that was a intuitive message, and it was a strong message. So I strongly believe that there's going to be, the word I'm looking for is restitution. So this could be between you and a group, or this could be between you and someone else. But it was Cancer energy, right? So it was energy of someone you counted on, of someone who you wanted to be fair with you. That's why I thought it was family or someone that matters, and they didn't. And now, under this Saturn retrograde and the square, I think it's bringing you back to those misses where you were not supported by your environment, and it's supporting the change in your favor, particularly values and adjustment of circumstances that were out of balance. Okay, so let's read some tarot to see what this energy is about. We first have the Queen of Pentacles, Queen of Trees. We have the Ego, which is the Tower. And then we have the 8 of Pentacles, which is Sun in Virgo. And the 2 of Stars, which is 2 of Wands. And then we have the 6 of Hearts. This has been coming up, Sun in Scorpio. And then we have 2 of Swords, which is 2 of Swords, 2 of Angels here. So something may have happened with someone else or for someone else. This may be involving a Virgo or a Scorpio or someone with strong Mars or Pluto placements. I think that there was a shocking event, such as someone not giving you support in a situation that you thought they would have for. But I think this is the energy more to do with now. This may have to do with the past. And I think that there's like balance achieved in the situation. I don't think you're worried about it so much. I think that like you're at peace. There could be another love interest in your life at this time, or a new love interest. And maybe you're focused on your relationship with that person more. So it really feels like what happened in the past is in the past. I think you gained some powerful perspectives on how people can be, on how circumstances can be, but I don't see that influencing you in a negative way at this point at all. And then we have the King of Pentacles, Virgo, Taurus, Capricorn, and we have the Lovers, that's Gemini, and then we have the Knight of Wands, and then we have the King of Wands, and then we have the High Priestess, and then we have the King of Swords. So a lot of people were involved in a situation. I got the 3 of Wands on the bottom of the deck. A lot of people were involved in a situation. There could have been like a breakdown in a relationship that some of you had, like a fundamental break in trust. And I just feel like there were many people that were involving themselves in this situation, third parties. And I feel like they were in a situation that they didn't necessarily, it wasn't theirs to be involved in, but here they were. Yeah, it feels incredibly busy to me, like a lot of opinions. We definitely want to clarify what this is about. This is also people who came to your side in a moment of need. It looks like you were being protected from something that was really falling apart. Let's pick the Lenormand. I know you guys like it. Let's pick 5 cards, but I'll do them this way so that you guys can see. So you can choose one of the 5 for a dedicated message and 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have the woman. This is concerning a woman. Queen of Pentacles, maybe. And then we have the cross. Some kind of a burden, some kind of a long-standing issue. In the center, there is the scythe, which is a fundamental change or a shift that mirrors the tower. Then we have the book, some kind of information, and we have the star. So it does look like it's a positive intervention. And maybe this is talking about the retrogrades that we talked about, how something was done unfairly or unjustly, and things are already underway to correct the issue or the problem. There's a secret that is being held back, and that showed up in other readings or that has been missed. So sometimes it's actually held back by people. Sometimes it's just missed. So people just, the information gets lost in exchange. But the outcome is the star, which is great success. I feel like there's definitely some kind of a liberation or freedom from the past. And maybe all of these people that are involved are in some way helping to liberate a person from a negative situation. Let's finish up with my cards. I still have questions. So we have the 6 of Wands. I think that's Jupiter in Leo. And then we have the King of Cups, Pisces, Cancer, Scorpio, 10 of Swords, and then the 7 of Pentacles, the Queen of Swords, and the Hierophant. So I think you're being brought back onto the path that you may have lost in the past. Maybe there was a dramatic situation that came up for you last year, particularly around the time of the eclipse last year. I feel like there's a lot of people talking with each other to come to awareness about situations. If someone was trying to influence your situation to a negative direction, 10 of Swords, I feel like their attempts to do that have been pushed off. So they can't continue doing what they were doing because now so many other people are watching. It's kind of like a panopticon. You may want to pay attention to that person, and this is for some of you out there. If it is a person that was instigating this via manipulation, lying, they may still be waiting for another chance to do the same thing over again. This may be involving a breakup where possibly one person lied about their partner and it held back the person from the direction that they were going, but that's been clarified. And now this person can move forward in a positive direction again. And this is the Hierophant. So whatever plans were deterred, whatever life path was deterred, they're being returned on the right path. So that jealousy, that envy that was projected at you is not going to hold. It's being clarified, and you're being brought back to the original path you were meant to be on, whatever was missed because of it. The Hierophant can mean life path, it can mean marriage, it can mean school, whatever kind of formal direction that you were taking, that you were pushed off of by circumstances. Okay? Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you like this. Sorry about my wonky camera angle. I'll figure it out. I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care. Bye.